Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittany Taylor with the Lead Center, a project of National Disability Institute, and we appreciate you all being able to join us today. We're really excited to share a little bit more about financial capability, the missing piece to the employment puzzle. As I said, my name is Brittany Taylor. I'm with National Disability Institute, and I will be facilitating and moderating today's webinar. And before we get started, I just would like to go through a few quick housekeeping tips so you can all enjoy and learn from the webinar most effectively. So listening to today's webinar, the audio is going to be broadcast through your computer. Please make sure that your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. And you can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can easily reopen by going to the Communicate menu. It's up at the top of the screen, and simply choose Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer, or if you prefer to listen by dialing in via phone, there are a couple numbers listed on the right-hand side of the screen, and I will be sure to put these into the chat box as well if you lose access later in the webinar. Those numbers are 1-650-479-3207, or if you prefer toll-free, 1-855-244-8681. And the meeting code for today's webinar is 667-279-526. And please note you do not need to enter an attendee ID when requested. Real-time captioning is being provided during this webinar, and to access captions, click the Media Viewer button at the upper right corner of the webinar platform. For Mac users, the Media Viewer panel will automatically be open in the lower right corner of the webinar screen. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels like chat or Q&A and or participants. For submitting questions for today's webinar, we are going to take questions at the end of the webinar. Please submit them to the Q&A box, and if you have any questions during the webinar regarding technical assistance, you can always email me directly at btaylor@ndi-inc.org, or you can also message me in the chat box or the Q&A box as well regarding technical questions or any questions that come up during the webinar you'd like to be addressed during the Q&A portion. And please note that this webinar is being recorded. The materials will be shared with participants within a week of today, and we are going to be providing that information to you directly via an email. As I mentioned, if you experience any technical difficulties during today's webinar, please do not hesitate to use the chat box to send me a message, or you can also email me at btaylor@ndi-inc.org. So with that, I am very excited to present today's speakers for the webinar. We have joining us David Leon, is the Ticket to Work Coordinator and Grants and Special Programs Director for the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. Also joining us is Mike Klinger, a Work Incentive Specialist from the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, and Elizabeth Jennings, who's a colleague of mine from the Lead Center, a project of National Disability Institute. So we have a jam-packed agenda for today's webinar, and we will not hesitate to jump right into all of our material, and we're very excited to share it all with you. Before we get started, we're going to review today's webinar objectives so you all know what you're in store for, and look a little bit more at an overview of financial capability. This is one part of a three-part series for this financial capability webinar series, so you'll learn what's coming up in the future. And then we're going to look at the connection of financial capability to employment services, look a little bit more at where we all go from here, and answer any of the questions that you have. So looking today at our webinar objectives, as a result of today's webinar, attendees will have a better understanding of the spectrum of financial capability strategies, gain an understanding of disability policies that support the provision of financial capability services, and be introduced to new activities and resources within the state of Virginia. As I mentioned, this is part one of a three-part webinar series called the Financial Capability Webinar Series, and its purpose was to address a major barrier to work, a lack of financial resources. And the goal is to equip all of you on the line today. I know that there are many WISAs, many staff from DARS and DVBI, and many of the Virginia VR vendors who are providing education and resources to customers and providing some education and resources necessary to build the financial capability of the customers that you serve and maximize their potential for long-term employment success. And throughout the webinar series today, you will also learn how to better understand the financial lives of the customers that you serve, the impact that financial capability has on their employment goals and job search, as we know they do. Shift a focus from employment as the goal to employment, rather as the goal to employment as a stepping stone to economic self-sufficiency. So looking at it in a little bit longer, broader, more holistic way. And then third is to connect customers to financial opportunities so that they can capitalize on the economic self-sufficiency that comes from opportunities with employment. So this is a reminder to save the date. We have a couple more webinars coming up in the coming weeks. The next one will be next week, 1 week from today, and that is going to be looking at resource mapping, which is a great strategy to enhance collaboration between partners and enhance referrals. You can click on the links directly, or I will also have them posted into the chat box. And with that, I would like to welcome David Leone to kick us off and really start looking a little bit more at how do we do this, where do we go?
Thank you, Brittany. I want to start with a little information about Virginia's Career Pathways for Individuals with Disabilities. It is funded through a federal grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and it's led by the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services and the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired. This grant will help nearly 500 Virginians with disabilities, including young adults and veterans, gain new skills and credentials through career pathways to seek employment in competitive, high-demand, high-quality occupations. And with this goal in mind, many of these 500 individuals will suddenly have access to more financial resources than they've had before. One of our goals is to make sure we are equipping our clients with the tools needed to effectively manage and grow those resources as they grow in their career pathways. Thank you. Career Pathways for Individuals with Disabilities has project partners in education, workforce development, and business. These partners focus on strategies to meet business needs in high-demand occupations, meet career seekers' needs to attain marketable credentials and find middle-skilled jobs, and train vocational rehabilitation counselors to work with potential clients. At Wilson Workforce Rehabilitation Center, the Career Pathways Project developed a pre-training in connection with workforce credentials instruction that includes supports to prepare students for training and employment, including the provision of occupational performance and financial empowerment training. And with that, I will turn it over to Elizabeth Jennings.
Thanks so much, David. Welcome, everyone. We're really happy to have you on the line today. As you heard, we are working in partnership with Virginia DARS and the Career Pathways program. And for those of you who don't know us, we're National Disability Institute. Our mission is to drive social impact to build a better economic future for people with disabilities and their families. You can learn more about us and access a host of trainings on financial capability strategies at www.realeconomicimpact.org. I'm just going to take a second to ask our host if she'll give me control of the ball, and I'll go ahead and switch the slides. Thanks.
Sorry about that, Elizabeth. You should have access now.
Thanks. One of our projects at the National Disability Institute is the LEAD Center. It's a federally funded project under the Department of Labor, Office of Disability Employment Policy. Our mission is to advance sustainable individual and systems level change that results in improved, competitive, integrated employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes for individuals across the spectrum of disability. You can learn more about us at www.leadcenter.org. We were really thrilled when Virginia and the Career Pathways Project invited us to partner with them to bring to you topics around financial capability and to help support the state on their new mission to ensure that DARS customers and customers of other employment services within the state are not only being supported to land a job, but are being supported to have a pathway to economic self-sufficiency that will give them a brighter financial future. So we're going to start off today with what is financial capability. Now, some of you on the line are probably very familiar with financial capability, but just so we're all on the same page, it's a combination of knowledge and skills to inform financial decisions and behaviors, identify opportunities to improve financial stability, and manage financial resources effectively. And that's a good definition for all of us. But we recognize that sometimes people with disabilities may require a little bit more, and there are additional considerations to ensure that individuals have the knowledge and skills they need, the opportunity to act, and really importantly, the support to take action. We find in research that a large number of individuals with disabilities are unbanked or underbanked, which means that they have no financial relationship with a financial institution, or they might have a financial relationship, but they still use predatory services like check cashing and payday lending. We also understand that people have low levels of financial literacy, and that when asked if they can secure $2,000 in an emergency, an overwhelming number of people with disabilities report that they have no social network from which to draw those kinds of funds. So we see financial well-being on a spectrum. The first area is financial education. That's thinking about the knowledge and skills that the individual needs. We want to move along that spectrum to support people in their financial capability. Those are the actions someone takes. And those two areas will lead to financial well-being, the kind of outcomes we want, including improved employment outcomes. Let's take a minute to break this down just a little bit further. So when we talk about key skills and knowledge, we're talking about a host of things, some of which you currently provide and some of which you may decide to provide, partner, or refer people to. One is money management and budgeting, and this is the core of what all of us need to consider every day in our daily lives. But also, when we're seeking employment, understanding what our budget is really helps to understand what level of work we should be thriving towards. Debt management, credit management. I'm not sure if you've run into job seekers in your work that have been denied employment or denied safe housing or denied a loan because of their credit, but it's an increasing issue, one that we need to all partner together to address. Public benefits management, which the state of Virginia has done a great job in addressing, and we're going to talk about later. How to secure good advice, and how to connect to resources, programs, and services. That's the where to turn. Where can I go for the support that I need, and how do I know who to listen to when I want to address some financial issue? The next level on the spectrum is desired behavior and actions. We want to make sure that financial decisions are based on good information and actions driven by positive financial goals. We want to help support people to move from a reactionary mode to their finances to one where they're being able to plan for the future, to set financial goals, and to use their drive towards their improved financial life as an influencer on the other decisions they're making, including how much they work, at what wage they work, how much of their public benefits they hold on to, and whether or not they engage in career pathways. So we want to help people think about this when they're understanding their money. Can individuals have the supports they need to build their knowledge of money, connect to trusted entities for advice, and use the available resources and supports? In earning money, are individuals working to their full potential and have the opportunity to utilize available employer benefits and public benefit work incentives? In using money, individuals have the budget to meet their needs and attain their goals? Are they utilizing affordable financial products? That doesn't always mean somebody has to be banked if they have a method that's working well for them. But banking doesn't just provide you financial stability, it provides you financial mobility. And that's important in this conversation. Our individuals have the resources to use credit wisely, and do they have proactive debt management? We also want to support people in saving money. Are people paying themselves first? Have they learned about opportunities in protected savings such as ABLE accounts, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, so that they can have emergency funds and have other opportunities to build assets? And then we want to make sure that we're providing resources and helping people have good actions around protecting money, that individuals can access and use available consumer protections and insurance products to protect the money they have and their ability to earn more. So how we go about doing this is identifying opportunities for individuals with disabilities as a critical component to them having the ability to achieve financial well-being. We also want to identify opportunities to integrate financial capability into the current disability service delivery system as an important component of this discussion. Some of you may have participated in the trainings that took place around the state of Virginia and got a great first training on how this is approached, how you can think through the employment services that you're providing to better understand key moments in time where an individual is ready and it's appropriate to be having a financial conversation with them. So we want to talk more with you about this connection to employment services. For a long time, providing employment services has not included a formal conversation around financial capability or even any conversation about a person's personal finances. But we understand better as a community and as a country the challenges that all Americans are facing around their finances. And we see these issues as sometimes barriers to employment, and they also can be motivators to employment. We're going to share with you some of the federal policies that support financial capability so you can better understand how this is not only growing from the bottom up, but also from the top down. So let's dive right in. The first is the Rehab Act of 1973. Many of you on the line are with a vocational rehabilitation agency. You know this act well, and you likely know that the purpose of the act is to empower individuals with disabilities to maximize employment, economic self-sufficiency, independence, and inclusion and integration into society. And that's where we want to focus. How do we ensure that the services we're providing are really helping a person not just to gain employment, but to maximize employment and economic self-sufficiency? A second rule comes out of the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, and it's the HCBS Final Rule Setting Requirements. The home and community-based setting requirements established an outcome-oriented definition that focuses on the nature and quality of individuals' experiences, and the requirements maximize opportunities for individuals to have access to the benefits of community living and receiving services in the most integrated setting. So as they explored what that means, the most integrated setting, they offered some key definitions, and we pulled just a couple of them for you. One is that individuals would be provided opportunities to seek employment and work in competitive integrated settings, engage in community life, and control their personal resources. As you can imagine, for an organization like us, that language is very exciting, that we want individuals who receive home and community-based services, which indicates that they have more significant disabilities, to have control over their personal resources. And it goes on to say individuals should also be able to optimize their individual initiative, autonomy, and independence in making life choices, both of which note that an individual will need the skills, the knowledge and skills to have the right behaviors and actions to lead to these good outcomes. So far, CMS hasn't provided a lot of language around how this should work, other than to say in settings where money management is part of the service, does the setting facilitate the opportunity for individuals to have a checking or savings account or other means to have access to and control his or her funds? For example, is it clear that the individual is not required to sign over his or her paycheck to the provider? So you're going to go further in the state of Virginia than in some other areas based on what the Home and Community-Based Final Setting Rule suggests, but a bit further than what their exploratory questions lead to. So we've tackled three: the Rehab Act, the CMS Home and Community-Based Settings Final Rule, and the third one is the Department of Labor Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It provides a clear focus on financial education in youth programs. I think WIOA is really interesting because it covers so much territory. Almost everybody who works in employment services is going to have some connection to WIOA, whether you're funded through a workforce system, you're funded through vocational rehabilitation, you are one of the mandated partners, or you're one of the state agencies that is in collaboration with with Workforce and VR under WIOA. WIOA is becoming an umbrella that a lot of us live under. And in the WIOA final rule, it identifies that local programs must make each of 14 identified services available to youth participants, and number 11 is financial literacy education. For those of you who are interested, we offered you the link to that final rule and all 14, but let's take a moment to talk a little bit more about what is financial literacy under WIOA. WIOA notes that financial literacy education program elements may include activities which support the ability of participants to create budgets, initiate checking and savings accounts at banks, and make informed financial decisions. They can also support a participant's ability to understand, evaluate, and compare financial products, services, and opportunities, and to make informed financial decisions. So you can see how all of this is starting to tie together. But WIOA adds more. It offers the opportunity for local areas to support activities that address the particular financial literacy needs of youth with disabilities, including connecting them to benefits planning and work incentives counseling, and to implement other approaches to help participants gain the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make informed financial decisions that enable them to attain greater financial health and stability by using high-quality, age-appropriate, and relevant strategies and channels, including, where possible, timely and customized information, guidance, tools, and instructions. So we have our three major rules that provide oversight to employment services: the Rehab Act, the Home and Community-Based Settings Final Rule, and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, supporting this message that when you provide financial literacy and financial capability strategies, you will support people to have a more holistic approach to their employment services, and we believe you'll lead to more productive outcomes because people will be entering the employment services and thinking through their employment plan with what their budget is in mind, with what their financial goals are in mind, and with the supports to address some of the financial issues that have been holding them back. There's additional supports that are provided, and I'm going to invite Michael Klinger to share them with you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good afternoon, everybody. So what you see on your screen now is a list of a few of the Social Security work incentives that allow people with disabilities to accumulate resources that do not count against their eligibility for means-based programs such as SSI and Medicaid. Most of you on the line would be familiar with most of these, but for those of you who may not be as familiar, I just want to briefly touch on each one of them to give you an overview of what they do. The first one is Social Security's Plan for Achieving Self-Support, or PASS. And PASS is geared towards people who are on SSI and who have a vocational goal. It allows people to set aside income and or resources aside into a special account to pay for items or services needed to achieve a vocational goal. And any money that they put aside into that account does not count for the purposes of their eligibility for SSI or Medicaid. So as they're putting that money aside into the PASS to save for their expenses, the amount of money that they are accumulating does not count against SSI, and their SSI check actually goes up. So it's a way to exclude income and resources while allowing people to accumulate savings. The second one is Property Essential for Self-Support, or PES. This one usually applies to people who are on SSI and self-employed. As a general rule, if somebody's on SSI and they have a home and a piece of property, the home that they live on and that property is excluded, but any other kind of property that they have separate from their home usually counts against the $2,000 resource limit for SSI eligibility. PES allows people who are using additional property that they have that their home is not located on to exclude the amount of that property if they use it for a business. For example, if somebody was a farmer and they were self-employed, the land that they used to farm on would not count against the $2,000 resource limit. Or if they worked out of the building on that piece of property and that building was their primary source for the building would not count as a resource. So it's a exclusion for people who are self-employed to not count against that $2,000 resource limit. And parent-related work expenses, or IRWs, are expenses that are paid for by the person with a disability out of pocket, not reimbursed by another person, that are related to their disability and work. It could be anything from expenses out of pocket for medical costs, transportation, anything that is work-related and disability-related can be counted as an IRWI. The amount of the IRWI is deducted from a person's countable income, so their SSI check or SSDI check would increase by the amount of excluded IRWIs that they have. Blind work expenses, or BWIs, work very much like an IRWI. They apply to people who are on SSI. But the difference between the BWI and the IRWI is that the blind work expense doesn't necessarily have to be related to the person's disability, where the IRWI does. Excuse me. And then 1619B Medicaid is a wonderful work incentive for people who are on SSI and who lose that SSI due to earnings. It allows them to keep their Medicaid as long as they meet a couple of provisions. Number one, they have to still be disabled under Social Security criteria. Number two, they have to keep their resources under the $2,000 resource limit. And number three, they can earn up to $34,684 to keep their Medicaid benefits. Now, in addition to that protection, what's also great about the 1619 Medicaid is it's a link to the SSI system. So if a person loses their cash benefits due to work, and then later the job doesn't work out, or the person reduces their hours, they can automatically get their cash benefits reinstated. So it's a way for automatic reinstatement of benefits if the person, excuse me, if a person, excuse me, my throat is very dry, so I have a little bit of a cold too, so if I cough, sorry about that. But so 1619 Medicaid is a link to allowing a person to keep Medicaid and keep eligibility for SSI benefits. Brittany, next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide is on achieving a better life experience or an ABLE account. And an ABLE account is a qualified savings account that receives preferred federal tax treatment, and I'll talk a little bit about the tax benefits in a minute. But it allows eligible individuals to save for disability-related expenses. And the guidelines for what qualifies as a disability-related expense are very broad. It can be anything from saving for medical expenses to transportation to education. Anything that could make a person's life better with a disability would fall under that disability-related expenses criteria. So in order for a person to qualify for an ABLE account, they have to meet a couple criteria. Number one is that their age of onset of their disability had to occur prior to age 26. And if they have Social Security benefits, either SSI or SSDI, prior to age 26, they're automatically qualified to meet that criteria for the ABLE account. Or if they're not on Social Security benefit, a doctor's note saying that they were disabled prior to age 26 would suffice as well. Don't necessarily have to be on SSI or SSDI. And it doesn't necessarily mean that a person that's older than 26 couldn't be eligible for an ABLE account either. So it just means that they have to be disabled prior to age 26. So if you have a client, let's say, for example, who's 50 years old, but they can prove that their age of onset was before age 26, disabled before that, then they would qualify. Next slide, please. Couple notes on the ABLE account. So the contributions for the year cannot exceed $14,000. And so when we're talking about who can contribute to an ABLE account, it can either be the person with a disability, or it can be a friend or family member that can contribute to the account, but they cannot contribute more than $14,000 per year. And so the assets in an approved ABLE account will not be counted when you're looking at eligibility for means-based benefits such as SSI and Medicaid. So the amount of money that's put aside into an ABLE account will be disregarded when you're looking at eligibility for benefits. And the savings limit is $100,000 for SSI recipients. So what will happen is if a person has an ABLE account and they reach that $100,000 limit and they're on SSI, their SSI benefits would be suspended until they spend the $100,000 down below that. So benefits are not terminated, they're just suspended, and then eligibility for benefits can be reestablished later if they spend the ABLE account down below $100,000. If they're just on Medicaid and not on SSI, then the limit is $500,000. That's not on the slide, but just thought I'd point that out. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Virginia's ABLE Now program, and this is the name for the ABLE program here in Virginia. And it's currently open for enrollment. It's managed by Virginia's 529, which also is responsible for coordinating the state's college savings plan. The investment institution is Vanguard and Fidelity. And there is an investment option for ABLE, which I'm not going to get into now, but basically people who do have ABLE accounts do have the ability to invest in stocks and bonds if they want to take a risk at enhancing their investment. That's not necessarily mandated. They don't have to invest in anything if they don't want to, but it is a way for them to maybe get a return on their investment. The program website, the people can enroll at ablenow.com. Again, the enrollment process only takes about 5 minutes. Very simple procedure to enroll. They can do it right online. Talked a little bit about the annual contribution limit of $14,000. The account limit is $500,000 again if somebody's on like Medicaid, or $100,000 if they're on SSI. Obviously, if you have a $14,000 per year limit, it's going to take several years for a client to reach the maximum limit, but just to be aware that there is one. Talked a little bit on the last slide about state deductions. And there is a deduction of up to $2,000 per contributor for an ABLE account. So if you have, let's say, two parents who are contributing to their son's ABLE account, they can get a tax break of up to $4,000 per year on their state income tax. So it's $2,000 per contributor. And again, so this program is open to people in Virginia as well as other states. So a person does not necessarily have to live in Virginia to enroll in the ABLE Now account. As a matter of fact, enrollment is higher in other states than it is in Virginia at this point. The number of in-state enrollees is growing, but right now it is available for both in-state and out-of-state residents who are interested and eligible.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. And I have so many questions already that I am itching to ask you all when we get to the Q&A. And just as a reminder to everyone on the line that you can ask questions before the Q&A, and we'll get them all queued up for you just by using that Q&A box in your on that right-hand side of the screen. And I think this was just such a really lovely overview of all of the services available in Virginia, and just a really nice overview of kind of what is financial capability, what does it mean, and at this point I'm going to turn it over to David, who's going to talk a little bit about why it's so critically important as well for an individual.
Thank you, Brittany. Some of the things we've been learning, and part of the reason we wanted to start with a focus on some of the federal regulations, is some of these changes are based on research on what financial stress does, and there's been a stronger impetus to work on this area in the work we do with individuals with disabilities. And research shows that dealing with financial stressors lessens our cognitive ability, and that if you are worried about your financial issues, it may prevent someone from focusing on work, which limits productivity and threatens job maintenance. For those folks who participated in our original community empowerment trainings around the subject, we showed a video that I'd encourage anyone to watch. You can see it on YouTube. It's called The Invisible Gorilla, and it's a perfect illustration of how hard it is to manage multiple priorities. And that's what happens to our clients. So we want to do whatever we can to help the individuals we are serving work towards not only successful placement, but be able to grow in their positions over time. And part of what we hope is this will lead to less recidivism. Another really important factor is that emerging research shows that economic empowerment interventions can help increase individuals' motivation to work and engage in employment supports. And for the VR counselors on the line or listening in, part of what that means is potentially we'll have less referrals to cold case, because we'll have folks who are more motivated to continue working through a plan. Or if you're on the line and with a Ticket to Work employment network, when you are dealing with these pieces and helping a client address some of these issues, you are increasing that individual's motivation not only to that work, but to engage in the employment supports your organization offers. And when our clients are actively engaging in the process, they're going to be more successful. Next slide, please. Part of what we have found is that our work incentive specialist advocate services have really been exemplifying these findings. We have seen significant increases in our rehab rate, and if we could go to the next slide. Our rehab rate for our clients when we provide work incentive services is over 67% since 2011. And when we compare that to clients on SSA benefits that don't receive those services, their rehab rate is only 41%. So this is over 3,500 cases. It's not just a few people, but what we have seen is that our employment outcomes are dramatically stronger when we tie into that work incentive services. Additionally, when we look at how the employment networks in Virginia are performing as opposed to those nationally, those that have been a part of this process and offer those work incentive services in the last 2 years have had an increase in ticket revenue for their agencies of over 73%, and 73% was the national average. So the groups in Virginia outperformed that by a good amount. And the other important thing outcome related that is new to Virginia and to all VRs, as Elizabeth mentioned with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, DARs and other VR agencies will no longer be measured by how many people we help get a job. One of the things that will be a measure is how many of the folks who we help with employment are still employed at the second and fourth quarter after exit, and are those earnings increasing or at least staying the same? So again, the shift is in measurement is, are we not only helping our clients go to work, but are we helping them go to work and engage in career ladders or stable employment options that continue to grow over time? And we believe that the combination of the WISA services for clients who need that and the financial competency services for all of our clients will greatly increase these numbers across the board for DARs. Next slide. So again, DARS WISA services encourage self-sufficiency. One of the big things that comes up with our clients is questions about what's going to happen when they go to work. And when we use work incentive counseling, it allows our clients to make informed decisions about work. We wanted to make sure that those partners who participate in Ticket to Work and Partnership Plus had the skills in-house to continue to provide those services after a client with SSA benefits exit VR. And part of the reason is research has shown that for our clients, it may take 2, 3, 4, 6 years for someone from when they get that first job through the help of DARS to be ready for that next job or more hours at work or a greater opportunity. And we wanted to make sure that they didn't have to go back through the whole VR process to say yes to increased opportunities. We also wanted to make sure that we could help guide our work incentive specialists to advance their knowledge base so they could continue to assist clients maintain and grow their employment outcomes. These webinars are a perfect example of that. Another example is some of the other trainings we're introducing around the state related to this, which we'll hear about on a later slide. Next slide, please. And now we're going to turn it over to Mike Klinger again to talk a little more specifically about the DARS services. And again, these are specific to DARS.
Thank you, David. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the Workload summary and analysis. Most of you on the line would probably be very familiar with Workload. Those of you that aren't, I'll touch on that again briefly. So Workload is an online specific database specific to Virginia that asks several questions related to what benefits the client is receiving and whether or not they're working. And based on the results of what is put in, the program can do a couple of things. Number one, it can calculate how the person's benefits is going to be impacted when they go to work. But more importantly than that, it highlights how the client's overall disposable income is going to go up when they're working. So they can see the benefit of how much more they're going to have coming in when they go to work as opposed to being on benefits alone. We always have an employment first approach. So we want to focus on not just on how benefits are going to change, but how overall income is going to increase when a client goes to work. In addition to doing that, it can also screen for some work incentives that the client may be eligible for that may not be using yet. And I'll go into that in a couple more minutes. If you're a VR counselor and you want to authorize a Workload summary and analysis, and the analysis part of the Workload is where a WISA would basically write up all the recommendations and scenarios that they put into Workload and then review that with the client, make sure they understand all the Workload outputs. That procedure code is A3013 in AWARE, and you can authorize that under the Work Incentives budget. Next one is PASS. Talked a little bit about PASS earlier. Those procedure codes, there's two of them. The first one is A3005 in AWARE, and the second one is A3006. The reason why it's split up is because sometimes once a PASS is written, Social Security will come back and say, okay, well, we think it's a good PASS, but we want you to change A, B, C, and D, just amend it slightly. So the first authorization is to allow the WISA to actually write the PASS. The second one allows for them to work with the clients in any amendments that are needed. The amended PASS will go back to Social Security, and then the service would be payable once the PASS is approved. Student earned income exclusion is A3009 in AWARE under the work incentives budget. Basically, that allows a client who is on SSI, a student under age 22, to exclude up to $7,200 per year of their earnings. That is not counted when their SSI check is being calculated. An individual development account, or IDA, allows for a person who has a disability to establish a savings account, often a matched account, that they can use to purchase a home, go back to school, or further the education. That is procedure code A3020 in AWARE. Talked a little bit about ABLE Now. That's a new billable service that we added recently, where the WISA can help a client enroll in the ABLE Now program and help them determine how their account's going to be set up, how they're going to use the money, and for what purposes. That is A3022 in AWARE. And finally, the last one is the financial health assessment, which is an upcoming billable service that we'll talk about more in the December webinar. We have recently finalized it, and we have a procedure code, but we're not pushing it yet because we're still working with representatives from DBVI and DBHDS just to make sure that the questions on the health assessment are specific to the needs of all individuals in Virginia with disabilities. So we are putting the final touches on that, and that should be ready to go in time for the final webinar. So we should be seeing that late November, probably early December. Health assessment is basically a way for service providers to help a client gauge what their financial goals are and how they could tailor their service plans in order to help the people reach the goal as a result of what they put on their assessment. So an example would be if a client said they wanted to accumulate more resources, then an appropriate part of their employment plan might be referring the client to a WISA for eligibility for PASS or ABLE Now that can help them reach those goals. So that's just a little bit on the FHA, and again, that is an upcoming service. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Mike. And now that we know a little bit more about all of the new services available, some of the new resources that are available through SSA and through ABLE, and now have a little bit more of an understanding of why this is so critically important. David's going to take a little bit of time to go through, how do you do this? Where do you jump in and start having these kinds of conversations?
Thank you, Brittany. So the first thing, as we think about financial competency and the services we're adding, but also with the services, Workloads are great to do early in the process. It really can help a counselor, and it can be used for counseling and guidance. But when a counselor, if you are working with a client on their plan for employment, when you're talking about what type of job that person wants, there are great tools to use to look at average earnings. That's a perfect time to discuss budgeting. And is your client, do they have the skills to do that successfully? And that doesn't just go for our VR counselors, but if you're with a Ticket to Work organization and you're writing that IWP, when you talk to that individual about the job they're going to have, it's a great time to talk about what their expected earnings will be and know if they're in a position to effectively manage those resources. Also, A study came out in 2014 that showed that 47% of employers require credit checks as part of the job screening process. So if you have someone that's looking at a job or you're helping with applications that ask those questions, it's a great time to ask some basic questions about credit and debt. Many people don't look at their credit report or haven't seen it. We may, as an agency, have helped somebody work towards a plan only to find out later that there's something on their credit report that is going to create a barrier to that employment. And another time is when someone gets to that job and they're getting ready to start. It's a great time to start talking about, hey, do you have a bank account? Do you want to do direct deposit? Do you want to start putting a little bit of money away for some emergency fund? You can even discuss items like, wow, you're going to need to spend money on these new expenses now that you have a car or now that you have a job. Maybe you should put a little bit of money aside for those things down the road. And another thing that's really important specific to DARS, we ran a report to look at how many people last year that we helped find employment would have been eligible for VITA and Virginia's free tax assistance, prep, and e-filing. And 99% of the people we worked with last year could have, at no cost to themselves, gone to a volunteer income tax assistance site and received not only help filling out their taxes, but filing. Imagine what that money could have done for some of our clients in terms of beginning to have a savings. And that's a great time to talk about, do you have a bank account? Do you have some debt? Are there some financial goals you want to set? And now I want to talk for a minute about the specific initiatives we're working on to build this organizational capacity. And the first, again, is when the CPID grant started, we partnered with NDI, and we spent about a year prior to doing anything researching what could be done, what's been done in other states, what the national trends were, what the options were available. And as we chose the things to work on, we wanted to make sure the items we chose to utilize would be sustainable and cost neutral in terms of our partners being able to utilize those resources. So the first thing we did was a series of 3 one-day community financial empowerment trainings, and I'm pleased to see a handful of people from those trainings that are on this call today. And those trainings really focused on behavioral economics, decision-making. Part of what we want to be able to do going forward is make sure that our counselors and providers have a better understanding of how people make decisions related to money and finances. And part of the reason for that is it's very helpful to have a better understanding of why we all make the decisions we do, to feel more confident and comfortable having discussions about these kind of subjects that used to be taboo with a lot of our clients. So one of the things we're really excited about with the community financial empowerment training is when we initially did this, we chose 3 parts of the state and had 60 people go through the training. As part of developing this training, we created 5 master trainers. So there are now 5 people in Virginia, and we will always do this in groups of 2, that can come and do this training for an organization. And those trainers comprise 2 staff from the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, a staff from the Department for the Blind and Visually Impaired, a staff person from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and a staff person from the workforce. So what that does is we got a broad range of perspectives, and our hope is to really, once we go through these webinars, then begin offering this around the state for organizations to really embed the skills. The other thing we did was partnered with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to do a master training on Your Money, Your Goals. And we started with a Train the Trainer event. We did that training in early September, so not that long ago. And in the 2 months since our initial training, 160 people around the state of Virginia have been trained and received these free resources that are reproducible, non-copyrighted, and available to be customized to your organization's needs. one of the things we really are excited about these tools are that you don't have to go A, B, C, D, and we're trying to dispel the myth that we as service providers have to be certified financial accountants or certified financial planners. You just have to want to help your clients understand the decisions in front of them to make a more informed choice related to employment and what they're going to do with their money, and these tools allow us to do that. Two other tools we're utilizing to build the organizational capacity, one through the CPID grant and will also be through the targeted communities, is motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is a type of counseling technique that has got a lot of evidence supporting its effectiveness, and it is utilized to help an individual move from what's called ambivalence talk to change talk. The reason that matters, especially for our clients who want to transition off of Social Security benefits or work their way out of poverty, they may be very ambivalent about some of the steps and nervous. And part of what motivational interviewing techniques do is allow you as a provider to help the client you're working with speak to the changes they want to make. And the research shows that when the clients we work with talk about the changes they want to make themselves, they're more likely to be successful. So we are really excited that each time we've been able to do a round of motivational interviewing training, we've been able to add 1, 2, or 3 work incentive specialists to those trainings. We see it as a potentially huge opportunity to grow our effectiveness around the state. And the last is we are partnering with the George Washington University on a targeted communities grant where we are trying to address 2 parts of the state that have significant poverty, and we are going to be working on, again, some motivational interviewing and some other financial education work in 2 specific areas. One is Martinsville, and then the following year we will be working in the Norfolk area to try to replicate what we do. But we see that as very much braided with this other work, and hopefully through these different projects really be in a position to capitalize on the momentum Virginia's building in this arena. And really what we're looking at is creating a different way of looking at how we do business. We want to better understand the financial lives of our customers and the impact on their employment goals and job search. We want to shift our focus from employment as the goal to employment as the stepping stone to economic self-sufficiency. We hope to connect our clients to financial opportunities so they're able to capitalize on the economic self-sufficiency that can come from employment. And we want to build our personal financial capability and knowledge of financial capability strategies to, again, better inform all of the clients we work with, not just across the state, but across the various programs where we may be stationed.
So we want to leave you with just a few final thoughts. And I realize we're getting short on time, and I feel like, David Leon, I could listen to you for hours. The passion is coming through, so incredible, and I can't really tell you all enough how when you sit at the national level and you get to see what's happening in states, what's happening in the state of Virginia is revolutionary, and we're so proud to be connected to all of you and really here to provide you whatever support you need as you move forward on this. But what's most important is this drive to not end with the employment goal. For many people that you're serving, increased income is just the start to feeling secure enough to think about their money. So if services end there without a full conversation about what this money can do for the person's financial future, they're really only getting half of that push towards a better, more economic, self-sufficient life. The individuals you're serving may not understand the financial services system. Very few of us really do, but they do understand what they want for themselves, what they want for their families, and what they want for a future. So structuring conversations around what the person wants in the future, what their financial goals are for themselves and for those they love is a great motivator. When you're working with folks who have been kept down, who have been demoralized, who have been socially devalued, you want to remember that small wins increase their self-efficacy, their belief that they can do more. And so that first job, that interview, those are all small wins that create more motivation for the individual to move forward. We don't expect that anybody is going to do this alone. That's why Virginia has done such a great job of bringing together a lot of partners to offer an incredible amount of support. So we want to remind you that partner, partner, partner. Do not feel you have to take this route by yourself. And please don't underestimate your power to create change through your encouragement of each other, of what you can do as systems, of the people that you're serving, and the expectations that the policies that we all fall under are going to change as our behaviors change. We noted that a few of you are on the line from other states. We want to encourage you to reach out to all of us who are on the line today. Brittany, maybe we can go straight to the contact information, because we want to make sure that if you're on the line and you're interested, that you have the supports that you need to take the next step. I'm going to pass it off to Brittany for Q&A, and I realize we're over time, but we want to answer your questions and offer you just a couple of next steps.
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I did just put in the chat box. I've gotten a couple questions from people about where they can download the slides for from today's webinar, and they are available via a Dropbox link, and it is in the chat box available to you all right now. And I also would just like to note, I know we don't have a whole lot of time for questions today, but if you have any lingering questions, please email them to me, or you can email them as well to any of the individuals that were speaking today. And I know most of you all know David and Mike very, very well, but if you have questions for Elizabeth and I, we are happy to answer any questions as well. I will just ask maybe one question, and I think this would be a very easy question for maybe David or Mike to answer, is when will all of these new services begin?
I can take that, Brittany. All of the services we've discussed, with the exception of the financial health assessment, are available to DARS counselors for clients now. The financial health assessment has been approved and the language is written. We are just finalizing the tool itself, and that will be ready, we hope, prior to the third webinar. But we really want to encourage people to go through all three prior to using that. And we're going to have some different requirements and ask that WISAs who are going to use these services have gone through each of the different trainings we discussed today. But it will be available very shortly. And the other nice thing with the financial health assessment is it will be available not just for our SSA beneficiaries and our traditional WISA clients, but we are working on making sure it is available for any client who is going through the CPID project, as well as with our pre-employment transition services clients.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. And I know we're over time, but I can't resist asking just one more question, and that is, where can I find resources on the financial literacy topics you guys were talking about today? And I actually think this is a nice segue to also remind people, before you answer that question, to sign up for next week's webinar, because it is going to be on resource mapping, which is a great resource and strategy for finding resources. But I will turn it over to you all to answer that last question, and then we'll kind of quickly wrap up.
This is David again. I can say the best examples are making sure you're connected with the Lead Center, NDI. They both offer fantastic regular webinars on these subjects. Sign up at the CFPB to be a part of the Your Money, Your Goals. You can get great trainings there. As I mentioned, there's now 160 folks around the state of Virginia who have been trained to utilize that tool. If you are interested in Virginia and want someone to come and do the community financial empowerment training, you could reach out to Michael Klinger or myself and help you get to the specific folks in your area.
And I'll just add that on the last slide, there was a link for the Real Economic Impact Network. We do a free webinars almost every month and have tons of free resources. Everything's available to you, and we are really proud of this partnership and happy to support you as you have questions or need further guidance.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think those are great resources, and I think that that is a great place to end for today's webinar. It's always giving people something else to go and look at. I just want to thank David and Mike and Elizabeth for sharing just so much information and echo what Elizabeth said. You know, Virginia is really doing incredible work, and you guys should all be so proud of how far you've come and what an example it is. I think it's great that there are other states on the line listening in as well to learn more, and we are happy to be a resource for you. I've put links to the Lead Center to NDI's Real Economic Impact Network in the chat box, and as well as reminder again to sign up for next week's webinar, where we'll kind of dive a little bit more into depth about how do you find resources and referrals as part of a resource mapping strategy. That webinar is going to be on November 2nd from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and we are very excited to have you all join us again. We appreciate everyone taking a few extra minutes of your time today to listen to the Q&A and to get these final resources, and just for being on today. We are very appreciative, and we look forward to having more information to share with you all next week. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. And if you are not able to receive the slides for today, just send me an email, and I would be happy to forward them over to you. I know some people may not be able to download the slides. I've gotten a couple notices. So just send me an email. It's btaylor@ndi-inc.org, and I'd be happy to get them to you. And thank you so much again for joining us. We look forward to having you on next week.